I thought there wouldn't be that much. There's so much. I think I'm caught up after this one today, boys and girls. And it's the weekend, and I'm going to keep keeping up. Short request. This is the third request from this guy in 48 hours. Can you present a video discussing 10 events in your life that gave you joy or inspiration? Perhaps your audience might find such events in your life inspiring as well. So I sat down and, like, for example, I remember talking to a buddy of mine, Brian. We're patrolling, and it was my last semester of school, and I was so excited because the future was bright. And he was like, man, you have been so positive and optimistic. Like, I was the complete opposite of what I am today. I'm like, dude, I'm finally done. I'm about to graduate. Then I'll get a job. It's over. Like, not only is K through 12 over, but college is over. And he's like, it's really good to see that. I remember, Brian was such an optimistic guy to begin with. But he's saying, yeah, no, it's great to see somebody so happy. And every day I'd wake up with hope and expectation. And that's the problem with a lot of these inspiring things. That was an example, but it didn't make the list because I guess it wasn't top 10. Because I was naive. I was living in a bubble. I was living a lie. I didn't realize that my degree was completely worthless. The entire financial economic sector is corrupt. Boomers were squarely in charge of the economy at that time, and meritocracy was thrown out the window. And so it was false hope, false and misplaced inspiration. So there's going to be a couple of those in here. And I just kind of, okay, when was I happiest? When was I most inspired? There's a little bit more happiness than inspired, or a little bit more joy than inspired. So here we go. In no particular order. Probably one of my happiest days was finishing college, because that, in my then naive mind, was like the end of poverty and suffering and toil. Like 2 decades and 2 years, I had busted my ass off. And now I could go make good money and finally have the things I wanted in life, and sleep. That was another thing. I could sleep. And I remember back in the day, you had to print off your papers, and it was common. You just put your paper underneath your professor's doors. And my door is 103 at Edmondson Hall. And so you go to Edmondson Hall and you slip it under there, have it under there by that time. And that's how you did it. So I remember I went to the Carlson School of Management while I was living at Ghettos in the Sky, which is more popularly known as Riverside Plaza. So all the Somalis lived and currently live today. So I came down off the 34th floor, walked to the campus, put my final paper. I didn't have an exam. It was a final paper. I put it underneath there, walked back to my apartment building, got in the elevator, and it went all the way up to, and I'm like, wait, I'm done with college. This nightmarish existence of 3.5 years of sleep deprivation and starvation is over. Like, I'm done. I graduated with no debt. I graduated 6 months early. I graduated, 3.96 GPA. I did great. And so the doors, I'll never forget, the doors open on the 34th floor. I hit the one button again, went back down, hopped my car, and went and bought myself some booze and ran myself a bath and threw Frank Sinatra and the CD carousel. Remember they had those 5-disc CD carousels? Just hit that on random and started drinking whiskey and sitting in the bath. And then my roommate came home. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I just graduated. He's like, congratulations. I said, yeah. So that was joyful in the sense that it was done. This nightmare was done. And then, of course, living on the false hopes and expectations that I'd be doing well. So I was feeling pretty good that day. Also related to college, Roxy and Foxy, the 2 sexy nurses. I was patrolling campus. This was a general thing where I was happiest, I guess, for a short period of time. Fall during my college days, when working security, that's when you'd have the most escorts, where you walk girls back and forth, and every guy is motivated by women. And here I am, I don't know, I was 19. I couldn't grow any of this. And I was a young looking kid. I was just this little twerpy looking kid. So it was Halloween, and all the parties were going on frat row and all that stuff. And it was wonderful because fall, they had this fresh air. You could pedal your heart out and you wouldn't sweat too much. And it's just wonderful. It's just a wonderful period. And we were all competing for like the highest number of escorts in one night. And it was just go, go, go. It was like this hustle thing. You actually felt like you had value. I guess we did because we were preventing girls from theoretically getting assaulted, burglarized, raped, whatever. So we'd walk girls home. So I get a call, I forget what zone I was patrolling. Like, escort Charlie. I'm like, Charlie, go ahead. He says, pick up Roxy and Foxy, the two sexy nurses from some party up in Dinkytown, and bring them to some other place. Like, copy, Foxy and Roxy, the two sexy nurses over at, this address. So I get there, and it's a party, and these two gals are dressed in the naughty nurse outfits. They got huge amounts of lipstick. They got the hat and the heels and all. They got one had like a medicine bag, and they're like, hi. And I'm like, sure them because their heels were so tall. I'm like, I guessing you're Roxy and Foxy, the two sexy nurses. And they said, yes, look at you. Like, you're so cute. I'm like, yeah, thanks. That's what I was going for. And I said, you gals got to go over here. Like, yeah. And they thought I was adorable. Like, we have to kiss you. Can we just give you a kiss? We'll mess up your face with our like, no. Lieutenant would get pissed off if he saw that. No. They're like, okay, guys. They kept hounding me to give me a kiss. And so I like, okay, look, you can each give me a kiss on the cheek, but only one. And that's it. And they're like, okay. So they gave me a big kiss. And then sure enough, I got these two big lipstick marks. So then I remember I tore it off the Falwell Hall because that was the closest hall. I was going to wash it off. Sure as shit, fucking supervisor calls me. He's like, hey, escort Cappy, you want to come meet her? I'm like, yeah. So I put my hood up, and then we're just talking. And he's like, what's that on your lip? What's that on your cheek? And I said, nothing. And he says, take your hood down. I'm like, shit. And he's like, Roxy and Foxy, too sexy. I'm like, Roxy and Foxy, too sexy nurses. He's like, go wash it off. I'm like, yes, sir. And you would have thought that was enough. No. I get a call before I can even make it to the battalion. Escort Charlie. Charlie, go ahead. I had to pick up some gal on the east bank of campus, and I walk all the way to Middlebury. I remember that. And I'm like, shit. So I tear off, and I put my hood up when you wait for the gal, but when I get off my bike, I put my hood up. And it was just this cute gal. They used to be that way in the 90s. Cute, not fat, unlike today. They were cute. I don't even know if you understand the concept of cute, Gen Zers, but women back in the day, you would sometimes like to kiss them without, hurling. This is just cute gal, and wherever she was, I knew she was going to Middlebury. So we're walking, and she's like, why do you got your hood up? I'm like, what's with the fucking hood? It's cold out. Yeah, I didn't say that. I said, it's just a little chilly. Like, really? I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, what? I say, well, I told him about Roxy and Foxy. Well, let me see. I take it down. Too big. And it's like, and this and that. She's like, well, do a lot of girls give you guys kisses? I'm like, I don't think so. I think we get in trouble for it. Even though I knew what would happen. Some gals would call guys that they liked and they just go fuck, like on the rooftops because the security guards had keys. So a lot of gals would like, some of the good looking guys, taller guys, they go fornicate. But I said, no, we're really not supposed to. And she's like, oh, that's kind of nice of you. I'm like, yeah, give me a spring to my step. They're dressed real hot, what else? And so I walked in Middlebury. I'm like, well, there you go. She's like, well, can I ask you something? I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, can I give you a kiss? I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I mean, I was happy. I was like, well, okay, I guess. She just gave me a kiss. Women used to do that back in the 90s. In the olden days, in the before time, women sometimes liked men and didn't view them all as rapist, aggressor, sexual assaulter. And sometimes if they liked a guy, they would let him know. And there was no power dynamic. They just sometimes wanted to kiss a guy. So that was good. I ended up washing my face. But that was obviously one of the more memorable nights of my days working security. Where did I had my list here? Also working security was when I caught a bike thief. That was, I don't know, inspirational or joy, but gosh, I was probably a junior by this time, and we were all in shape. I don't mean buff, we weren't, but I mean cardiovascularly, because all we did was hike and pedal and bike, and I tore up me and a couple other guys were like the top four. And so this deadbeat loser kid, 14 years old, he's on campus. I didn't even see it, but I went by. All of a sudden, I hear an alarm go off, and they had bike alarms sometimes. And it turned out to be one of our patrolmen, one of the security guards. He tried to steal this guy's bike. So he hops on it, and I had a racing bike. because there wasn't any turf. It was all pavement where I was. And this guy had a mountain bike. And so I heard it. This 14-year-old kid tries to take off, and like, hell no, you picked the wrong guy today. I tore after him. I got him, and we busted him. That was the excitement there. I don't know if it was inspirational, but the adrenaline rush was pretty cool. Inspirational, riding to Alaska. That's probably the most inspirational thing I've done. Just beautiful, thousands of miles of beauty. Also, you're out in the middle of nowhere and no one else is out there. You're kind of like, why is no one else out here? Going through British Columbia, between all the way from basically Banff up to Jasper, over to Kitawanga, into Hyder, Smithers, just and then you go down Castlegar, Revelstoke, Nelson, Salmon Arm, Sycamus. Just being out there and, you know, riding my motorcycle, doing shit when I was 36, 37. Most guys never do in their lives. That was pretty cool. Another inspirational, although say also joyful. And this was one of those things that I guess inspiration inspired me to think more entrepreneurially is I offered my first dance class long time ago. And it was the first dance class I taught. It was the first one that I offered. The other one started beforehand. But this ended up, they said, you got 50 people enrolled. I'm like, oh, good. And he said, good, that's great. We've never had that many people enrolled in the class. I'm like, really? You're like, yeah, do you know how much you're going to make? I'm like, well, and I did the math and ended up, I was making $350 an hour. 23. And that was definitely inspirational. And I wish it lasted that, but that was just luck. But that certainly, I was happy too. A lot of joy with that, but I couldn't believe I was making $350 an hour. It was great. Another thing that was inspirational and joy, probably a big scratch to itch, is if you look at the map. Atham, look this up. The first real national park you run into on the west side of the country is Badlands National Park. And you got to go pretty far north to get to it. And I remember visiting it when I was in the 8th grade, and we couldn't hike it because we had to get to a seminar in Denver for Christ, because it was a religious thing. And so that pissed me off, because all it was tempting you. And so I didn't know. We didn't have internet or anything like that. I didn't know how far the Badlands went. It's about 10 miles, 30 if you go down a certain route. So all you saw was this unknown land. And so it had always been my desire to go back and hike across it. And I did that when I was about 31 or 32. And so I drove out there and I dropped in at Sage Creek campsite, which is the far west side of the Badlands. Badlands is basically this big crescent with two big blotches of Badlands formations between it. And I hiked more or less the entire crescent way out in the middle. If any of you have been to Badlands National Park, you've probably driven the rim and you look down into the Badlands. That's where I hiked. I hiked all the way through that, all the way from there to the Kanata Basin, which is about I think halfway through, maybe 2/3. The rest of it isn't as thick. And so that was inspirational. It was just beautiful. Like, finally I got to go where I always wanted to go. That was also at the point in time where I was telling bosses and people to fuck off. It started becoming real. I wasn't a really nice person to begin with, but that's where I even remember a girlfriend, you're always so angry. I'm like, really? Watch this. Hold my beer. And then I really got pissed off and angry. And then everyone liked me more. It's amazing. But that's where I started doing things I wanted to do. Even when I didn't have the money, like, I didn't care anymore, because I was like, I'm sick and tired of doing everything the fucking boomers told me to do. And here I am, fucking penniless, pretty much, earning $12 an hour as a security guard. Those fucking lying sexist shit. So now I'm not going to save for retirement. I'm not going to do that. And then all of a sudden now that led me down the path where I was making money. But that was one of the more inspirational ones. What probably one of the biggest joyful events, probably second most joyful event, was when I had my best date ever. And it was only one date. I've told this story many times before because you guys get hope, but this is a story why not to have hope. Best date I ever had. Everything was great. I was 24, 25, and I was like, wow. You mean just the way it was originally programmed to be, where you get excited. And so your hopes were really high and up. And I was like, it was a high, man. No drug could have, because the gal was so cool. The gal was so neat. Of course, the story goes that 4 or 5 days later, I called her, see if she wanted to grab lunch. And she was completely different. And sad as she's, oh yeah, we can't hang out anymore. And, old Cappy was crushed. And, but that, again, false hopes, false expectations, very much like college. But there's no denying that, oh, we went ballroom dancing, swing dancing, we did it all. I forgot all the different places we went, but it was just a joy. I'm like, this might be the girl I marry. Wasn't really thinking about marriage, but this might be the one. And then that was put to rest in, 72 short hours. But at the time, it was very joyful. Yes. Here's a rule, guys. Anytime you're having a grand old time, there's something wrong. Something's wrong. You're not getting all the info. You're about to get a woeful amount of pain and hurt down there. Something is going to end. You are living a lie. There is a lie. You've been misfed information. So, but anyway, the good news is that gal's fat now, so it's all funny. All right. This, I don't know what it was, but it always stuck in my mind. And I think maybe it was inspirational because I was very young. I was 18. I had got a job, was supporting myself, and I felt comfortable enough financially to buy a color television. And I had that thing forever. And it was I was happy, but also maybe inspirational where it's like, okay, I can do this. I don't need my parents. Because you don't know. You leave home and like you're being kicked out of the nest. And can you fly? Oh, I can fly. Not only can I fly, I can get a color TV as well. So it was like this victory thing I bought. So I didn't have a TV, so I got this color TV. It was really cool. I had, color. Oh, it was big. Not super huge. But I went to Montgomery Wards. I took the bus down to Montgomery Wards. And I went in there. I got this TV. And I remember they were heavy back in the day. I remember carrying it back on the bus and having to lug it back to my dorm room. I think I paid $380 for it. That's like 1993, 1994. Sounds like a $600-700 TV in today's money. It was like, hey, I got my TV. Oh, and guys, let me tell you, I thought I was going to impress the chicks. Got my VCR, got my color TV. Girls are going to come over here. We're going to watch Die Hard. It never works. No, it didn't work. It just didn't work. But I'll not forget going downtown. There used to be a big, you go downtown. Go downtown. That's where the Neiman Marcus was there. Dayton's department store. That's where all the. Now it's just a shithole. You don't go downtown. And Montgomery Wards is no more. But yeah, I got my TV at Montgomery Wards. The greatest source of joy, though, hands down, was my grandpa. I remember just being a little kid, and my grandpa was the greatest man ever. And the amount of love, and we go fishing, and then we go do Miller time. We go to the VFW, and he'd get a real beer. I'd get a root beer. He'd get us ice cream. He'd get us little 50-cent balls out of the bag. And my dad always went, I don't need it. And he would just say, shut up. And it's just, the man loved us. We would, I can't even begin to describe. There's only two other guys I know I've ran into in life where you're like, okay, maybe you are angels. Maybe there is. And I think only one is still alive today. But by God, my grandpa was one of them. And he wasn't human. He was just too nice, too loving, too kind. And everything was fun. And when we'd go visit him, we would be the focus. He would focus on us. What do you kids want to do? And let's go over here. Let's go to the water slide. Let's go to the lake. We'd show him something. He'd act interested, or maybe he genuinely was interested. He'd just give us big hugs. And, oh man, my grandpa. That is by leagues ahead of the greatest data era. Leagues ahead is without a doubt the most joyful event in my life was hanging out with my grandpa. And then I would say on par with the greatest date, maybe even better, probably better now that I look at it because it lasted longer. Halo LAN parties. Those were the best. Those were the good times. And you didn't realize it, but man, I was so excited to play. Hey, we go and it was because you're local and you could yell and curse at each other. You could say, hey, Mikey, guess what? And you hit him with the sniper rifle. You fucker, Clary, God damn it. You could hear him. and they were there. We'd have booze. We'd have other Halo party. We'd be going to I remember I teach all the way down in Chaska. Atham, look this up. And I drive all the way to Anoka to go play Halo. And it was great. Play till 3 a.m. then go home. Oh, it was great. And then all the guys were there. And I was really good at it too. So I could get some guys really pissed off. It was wonderful. And that's it. So, I mean, it's not, I don't know if they're, super happy fun times or anything like that. But, that's those were my most happy and inspirational moments in my life. Maybe there were more if I sat down and thought about it, but those ones that came to mind. Nimble Fred, $5. Finishing college and especially grad school was a good feeling. Getting out of the Navy wasn't too bad either. Yeah, I'd imagine. Did I miss up anything? What time did I start this? How long are we going? Oh. Somebody in the chat room, let me know if I missed any super chats. Time lapse for $5. So you're saying women in the 90s were more than just their politics? It's hard for me as a Gen Zer to imagine. Yeah, they were all leftist, of course. But their politics wasn't their only thing. It wasn't the sole thing, and their career wasn't their only thing. Now, don't get me wrong. Women still treated men like shit. They'd stand you up. They'd lie, string you along, bipolar shit. This was all still happening in the 90s and the aughts. But at least, like, when you went to class, you're like, oh, it wasn't, I hope there's some hot chicks there. It's like, I can't wait to see the new hot chicks. You would go and there would be some. And then there came the strategy, like, okay, show up a little bit early so you could sit next to them. Hopefully there's some girls so other guys don't sit next to them. You'd even dress up a little bit. And gals would dress nice. They would. There were pretty women in the 90s. At least you could say that. Not all of them. But they were not delusional enough to say, oh, yeah, big is beautiful. Or that beauty is a social construct. Dare alone shame men for liking chicks who were thin or svelte. They all damn well knew what the game was. Yeah, and even though the experience was horrible, at least you got to see the beauty. I guess it's kind of like you don't get to own the painting, but I guess you get to look at it a little bit, if that makes any sense. You don't get to taste the steak, but you get to smell it on the grill. Because ultimately the quality was very poor, but at least it got you out of bed in the morning. Like, oh yeah. Oh, I remember patrolling. If you did escort, oh yeah, you told, and there'd be some hot chicks, and man, that was enough to make a guy's night. It was enough to make a guy's night. And she didn't even have to like you. Just like, oh, it's a pretty woman. Thank God. There's some fuel for you, kid. Go patrol another mile a little bit more. Nonstop DRE, the most joyful moment was me getting my DD-214. What's a DD-214? Is that a gun? What's a DD-214? Your army blanket? Discharge papers. Okay, all right. So you got your discharge papers. Well, what? Now you're all missing the Marines now there, DRE. Now you're all like, oh, I go back maybe. Hey, who's this guy? Troy Kostelecki, $2. Women should only care about politics and careers. They should only care about that. They serve no other function in life. Ignore half the population is different. And curiously, statistically, coincidentally enough, they have a thing that protrudes and goes into a hole on the. Ignore that by design, and then things happen. It's not like you go and you bang a tree, and well, I guess you just made a deposit into a tree. Little things come out of that hole later on. Like there's a reason almost for it, but. Nonstop DRE 360. It's hard to imagine Cappy being happy, and it was a time, guys. It was a time. It was a time. And then you see the real world. Then you're unplugged from the Matrix. You're no longer Keanu Reeves in a nice 1990s suburbanite setting working at Global Corp. You're in a hellish world where here, exactly. Miguel Angel, where big is beautiful. Yes, Miguel. Thank you. Fernando, Covet for $2. In engineering college, all girls were princesses. Yeah, they were. That I saw in the IT departments. Because every guy wanted to get with them. And there's what, 1 to 10, right? Ratio 1 to 10, or at least 1 to 8. Nonstop DRE for $2. Was this thin and kind women you speak of? I didn't say kind. I said they were thin. They were thin, right? Rarely were they kind. Foxy and Roxy were rare. The other gal that night was rare. That's why it was a very outstanding night. Not that it was, but the night stood out from other nights. No, most people, but they'd stand as where the 50-50-25 rule came in. 70% of the gals would stand you up. That was in the 90s. That was all right. That's it. Questions, answers, AsselConsulting.com. This might be the last one. We'll see you guys later. Toodles.